Fog of War. 9. Nguyen stood silently behind Hara in the back of the elevator car on the ride out to the Needle. Peter Ricks stood beside her, working through last-minute logistics on the monitor inset beside the wide cargo door. "We pulled in our best workers," Peter said. "Everything's loaded on your ship." Nobody refused. Even Ellie Dutton chipped in a good volume of fuel and oxygen. Hara was grateful, but she also burned with the shame of it. She was loading a big part of Olin's capital into the hold of a ship she'd never flown, to expend far from the community that worked their fingers to the bone to scrape it together. She waved the screen to black and turned to face Ricks. "Thank you, Peter." Her throat tightened up again. "I don't know what else to say." Peter looked almost reverent as he stared at her. "Don't need to say anything, Mayor. You dedicated your life to Olin, and I'd have been freeze-dried crop fertilizer my first week on the docks if not for you." Hara remembered the summer he and Philip had gotten their first jobs on the docks. She'd been floating outside that day, examining drive repairs on her and Jake's ship. Cargo had broken free halfway between the Needle and another ship Philip and Peter were loading. It sheared off Peter's safety line and sent him tumbling into space. She only hoped someone would be there for her kids when they needed it, if one of her kids. Now the thought of her kids was too much. She looked away from Peter and gently, lovingly shut them away in a chamber of her heart. The elevator chimed. Peter coughed. "The cargo? It's just stuff, Mayor. Stuff we wouldn't have half as much of if it weren't for you." The doors opened on a still silent dock. Ahead of her, Sergeant Blocker and Bruin waited, along with the 6 Olin men and women from the list she'd given Eric. "Tick-tock, Captain Otana," Nguyen said. She nodded and stepped out to address the new recruits. Nguyen spoke behind her. "A word, Mr. Ricks." Hara looked back as the doors closed, in time to see Peter wave goodbye. Hara silently led the recruits through the airlock of Nguyen's ship. He'd given her the codes, and, as per protocol, she said nothing about what lay ahead for her neighbors until the airlock was locked behind them. She gathered them around, met their eyes, and tried to keep the guilt of betrayal out of her own. Mayor Train told you this would be dangerous. He also told you the stakes?" Nods all around. "Good. You all know me," Hara said. "Now you have to trust me." Hara remembered the terror she'd felt in the early days with Nguyen. Even when she began to suspect the stakes behind what they were doing, her education had been an ordeal. Nguyen hadn't been the best of teachers. Today was a day she'd long wished would never come. But she knew it would, and she'd promised herself she'd get it right. She stood straighter. The natural kind of smile she always wore changed, dimmed in both wattage and kindness, and took on the slightest curl of a snarl. "There's a battle coming that will tear Olin apart. Don't be scared. Fear isn't helpful. If you listen, if you do your jobs, some of you might live. Your families might live." The curl at the end of her smile deepened. "And your enemies won't." 22 hours later, approaching muster position Alpha. The hull of Nguyen's ship was battered and appeared poorly kept. The inside told a different story, extremely clean, all onboard systems overpowered for its size. The bottom half of the ship had been retrofitted into one large airtight cargo hold. 9 gleaming white breaching suits, a cache of assault weapons, and a mountain of lashed metal and alloy superstructure. Sergeant Blocker clapped his hands together atop the scaffolding. "Our orders are to have a squad ready for breaching duty immediately upon arrival. We will debark the craft upon arrival at the muster point for a breaching station. If we're lucky, we'll get there for the start of the push. En route, we are to retrofit this little darling onto the ship to give our breaching teams cover. Only thing is, how the hell are we supposed to install it in transit he asked. Not a problem. My specialty is on-site refit and repair, Hara said. I'm just surprised a ship this small can maintain the energy to power it. She ran her hands along the 2-story length of the particle beam cannon. Wonder where they hid this away all these years. Since you ask, Nguyen said, descending on the open elevator platform at the front of the hold. It's been encased in cement at the bottom of a water treatment module on the mining rig where they stationed me when you retired. Really? Blocker said. I'd have kept it up and running. Maybe hide it on a pirate ship under our control. Hide a weapon of mass destruction with the kind of filth that would use it first chance, Nguyen said, leaping off the elevator platform when it was close enough to the ground. I'm glad you're in ops, not strategic support. No more pirate postings for you? Hara asked. One was quite enough, thank you, Nguyen muttered. When can we have the suits operational, Sergeant? They're humming now, sir, Blocker said. But we've got 6 raw recruits who need tears and injections first. Hara remembered taking her tears. I want to be there. You're one of our best-rated spacers, Nguyen reminded her. This beam isn't going to install itself if everybody spends the whole burn in the fetal position. I'm going to be there, she said again. I'm going to talk them through, help them remember who they are. Right, Nguyen said. You're gonna be a better spy daddy than I was, eh? One can dream, Hara said, walking past her former spy daddy and climbing onto the platform. This is your writer and narrator, John Muro. For more information, please visit servingworlds.com. Thanks for listening.